Thank you for joining the Art of Face Drawing with Tiffany S. DaVanzo, a portrait artist and instructor with Global Arts Community Sktchy. Tiffany is a freelance medical illustrator specializing in art for medical publications, education, and the medical legal field. She's a 2003 graduate of the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Art as Applied to Medicine program. Tiffany is a certified medical illustrator and has been a member of the Association of Medical Illustrators since 2001. She lives in East Tennessee with her husband and 2 young daughters. In today's session, Tiffany is going to share the basics of drawing a human face. So please join me in virtually welcoming Tiffany DaVanzo.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited everyone can be here today to join us. This should be fun. I'm going to kind of set today's lesson up as if I'm working with a beginner, but obviously I'm sure a lot of you enjoy drawing portraits, enjoy just the art of drawing. So feel free to go at your own speed. While we have people kind of joining us, I'm just going to start off a little bit by talking about myself, and then I'm going to give a few tips on working with photos that hopefully will help you so that in your future portrait drawings, you can manipulate your own photos to kind of get the best reference you can get for drawing a portrait. Our model today is Phil. And if you see, I think Nicole has put the link in the chat there, which will allow you to go ahead and pull it up on your computer, your laptop, whatever you're working with. And let's see here, anybody who wants to go ahead and jump over into the chat and let me know where you're from. I really enjoy knowing that we've got people from all over the country joining us today. And Nicole said, I'm in Tennessee. It's a beautiful day here, nice and sunny, East Coast time. And let's see. Okay, Florida, Colorado, all the way from California, Texas, Arkansas, Texas. Fabulous. Well, hello, everyone. This is your first time, welcome. If you've drawn, I think this is maybe my 3rd time doing this drawing class on Senior Planet, so I'm really excited to be back. And we're gonna get a great portrait and give yourself grace and time, and let's see what we can do. So while people are still kind of logging in and finding the reference and getting that ready, let's just go and look a little bit at my iPad, and I'm just going to show you some tips on dealing with a photo. So I'm going to bring that. Oh, let me show you. Let's start on my camera, shall we? Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Bring up my other camera here. Oh, well, happy birthday to you, Diane. Let's see. Okay. I'm just going to take a second here to rearrange my screen so I can see. Hopefully you are seeing now my drawing board and my canvas here. Okay. And let me see how many of your faces I can fit in my gallery really quick. Okay, great. Okay. All right, so can a couple of people just let me know, can you see my screen? Are we good? Oh, somebody from Gallatin, that's not too far from me. In the village, Salt Lake City. I used to live in Salt Lake City. Okay, yes, we can see. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so let me talk, well, I've changed my mind. I'm gonna talk just a little bit about what you need in case somebody needs to run off and grab a pencil or anything. Really all you need is a piece of paper. It can be typing paper. It can be a sketch pad and a good old 2B pencil, just like you had in school. If you have more advanced art supplies, you might have a professional drawing set, with a range of pencils. These are from Faber-Castell, and they have just different lead hardnesses from very hard to soft. So if you have fancy pencils, you can grab those. If you're really brave and you prefer to work in ink, you can go ahead and draw with ink. And then I just have a selection of erasers here. I have a good old kneaded eraser. These are about $1 from Michael's. These are the best things ever. And then I have a couple of stick erasers that you'll see me using. And these are just handy for erasing fine details. Okay. All right, so once you've got your supplies, you should be set. Another thing that is kind of handy to happen is you're going to want, you might need a sharpener, and a ruler is kind of handy to just kind of keep, especially if you're dealing with proportions and you're trying to be really technical. I usually tell my students, especially when you're starting off, don't worry about trying to get a perfect likeness, try to get a perfect human. So if we draw something that looks in the same family as our subject, we're good. If they look human, we're good. You know, don't be too hard on yourself. And let's get going. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna have to turn off my light here for a second. Okay. All right, so here is Phil. This is a fabulous reference to draw from. It's already black and white, so we can see it's a nice up close image. We can see really great detail. So this image is already perfect, but not every picture we take or we're gonna have is going to be. So this is, let's see here. I'm gonna use myself as a test subject. So this image isn't horrible. But I'm right in the middle of the screen and it's not quite close enough. So whether you're using iPhoto or you might be using Preview, or you might have a Samsung or another type of phone, there's always going to be an image manipulation software, and they're going to have most of the same steps. So I'm just going to go through a few ways that we can get this image a little bit better if we were to draw it. So I'm going to go ahead and go under Edit. Here we can see. And then once I'm in there, I'm going to go here and adjust. And then this is going to allow me to make some changes. So if you have an iPhone or something, you might have this one that is auto, and that automatically boosts the contrast and makes everything a little bit better. But if not, you might have to come down to these exposure controls. So exposure is going to just change, like we're working with a camera, the exposure, add in a little more light. So that's something you can adjust to get it a little bit better. Go ahead and lighten it. Brilliance is going to really pop out the colors a little bit more. So I can adjust that, or I can take that down. Highlights are going to be affecting the lightest areas of my face. And we can mess with that. Same thing with shadows. If you have a photo that's really dark that has a lot of shadows, you can adjust that. I don't have too many here, so I'm not going to mess with that one for now. And then contrast. Contrast is going to change the difference between the lightest lights and the darkest darks. And I'm going to actually reduce the contrast a little bit. And then brightness will just brighten the whole thing up, or it will darken it depending upon which way you move it. And then I don't think I need to go through all of them, but saturation will really increase the intensity too. So those are some things you can adjust on your photo to kind of get it to a better state. You may also have, well, let's go back here. I want to show you one more thing about saturation. Saturation is what you can use to change it to black and white. So if I go all the way down the saturation scale, you can see that I can actually make the photo black and white. Another way to do that is to, if you have this filter setting, you can go over and pull through some of the preset filters, and then you can find one that's black and white. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like that. And I'm going to hit done. And then I'm going to go back and edit. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crop it in order to get rid of some of this extra space around me that I don't need. Now, if I go in and I pinch it, you can see that I can enlarge it and get a much closer view. That would be better for drawing purposes. We maybe don't need to see me this up close, but if I was drawing a self-portrait, that's what I would want to do. And you'll notice that one of my tips is, I'm not sure how it's showing up on the screen, but you can see that a grid pops up. And instead of putting my face right smack dab in the middle, I'm gonna move it a little off center, and that will just give us a little space to deal with in the photo. So just a couple really fast, I know I kind of zoomed through that, tips for how you can take one of your own photos and make it a little bit easier to use. And then sometimes you have one like this where maybe we just want to get rid of somebody. This is a question I get asked a lot by my family members. It's, I've got this photo, how do I get rid of somebody? And that's the same thing. We can just go to edit and we can crop, and then we could just zoom in and just kind of adjust the framing of the photo in order to, remove someone. That's really all I want to do to talk about the photos. You do not have to work. I see somebody's asking about if there a reason to make the photo black and white. Absolutely not. You can absolutely work from a color photo. That is quite all right. A lot of people find it's easier to not have to, make their brain translate colors and the shades and the values of the colors to black and white. So some folks just like to have a nice black and white photo if they're doing a black and white portrait. What is completely personal preference. And I was just using iPhoto, but most of these same things can be done in any photo editing thing. On my desktop, I use Preview, and there's usually just a way to go in there and to make edits and adjustments. So, all right, well, I am done talking and ready to jump into this. I'm just going to take a quick little sip of water here. If I didn't mention before, our muse today is Phil. And he's graciously agreed to be our test subject. I'm going to just grab one of my pencils here, and I'm going to grab one of the lighter pencils I have, because as I start drawing, I'm going to be drawing very lightly. I'm going to actually be creating something like this at first. No details, just this was kind of my warm-up. So just a nice kind of basic face shape with some basic dimensions. My first tip for drawing, and if you want to, you can actually stand up. So we're going to start by drawing with our shoulder. And then as we get more detailed, we're going to move down to drawing with our elbow, and then our wrist, and lastly, our fingers. And that's how we're going to kind of keep everything loose. If you want to, you can go ahead and stand up. I'm going to just move away from my paper just a little bit so I can have a better idea, and to give my arm a little bit more space. And I'm just going to draw a nice circle, just nice and light. Remove that strap. All right. When I'm drawing the circle, what I'm thinking about is the cranium part of your skull. So if we take your jaw, the jaw off, just this nice round shape of the skull down to underneath the nose, this shape. Okay. And then I'm gonna we have a nice midline subject here. He's looking nice and straightforward at us, which makes it a lot easier. I'm just gonna drop a little line down, just straight down the middle. Again, I'm drawing as lightly as possible because I may need to erase these lines. Okay. And now I'm going to come down, and I'm going to start thinking about the sides of his face. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in just a little bit Because if you feel on the sides of your face, your temples, right, they're flat. Top of your skull, nice and round. Side of your face, nice and flat with the temples. So I'm just going to come down nice and lightly, a little bit below where my circle ends. And then I'm going to start coming over to the chin area. And I'm going to move my extra pencil out of the way and do the same thing on the other side. And again, I'm holding my pencil fairly far back and I'm not moving my wrist a lot. I'm using my shoulder. I'm just trying to be nice and loose at this stage. Chin there. All right, so the next thing, I'm going to look at this original circle and I'm going to think about where his eyes fall. And if I were to draw a circle here, it'd probably end about here, somewhere between his nose and lips and his eye level. I'm just going to draw a little curved line where I believe the eyes would fall. And then once I have that in, I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about proportions. So the proportion rule that I use is 1/3. And you can test this out on yourself or any photo you have handy, but the third is going to be eyebrows to forehead is 1/3. And then eyebrows to the tip of your nose is another third. And then the tip of the nose to your chin is 1/3. Of course, we're all unique. And some people, it might be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter in certain areas, but that is a good basic general rule. Now in this photo, I will say, and I've checked it by just my measuring, but his chin is up a little bit. So what happens when you put your chin up just a smidge is his forehead's going to be slightly smaller and the chin area is going to be slightly larger. So I'm going to go ahead and make some lines here that represent that. So going from the eye line, I'm going to just go up and indicate eyebrows. And then we can really see the shape of his head there. So I'm going to go ahead and make that my first measurement. And then his hair would, of course, be higher. So eyebrow to forehead. And then I'm going to take about that same distance and I'm going to go down. And I'm going to make an indication for the nose. And it's turned up a little bit, so I might just go ahead and draw in that little round ball of the nose there. And then I'm going to take bottom of the nose to the chin. Again, I'm just going to double check that. And you can take, if you want, you could take a ruler and measure these, but I usually just kind of rough hand it by looking with my fingers. And I'd say that is 1/3, that is about 1/3, that is about 1/3. So I know I'm pretty close. And I'm actually just going to move this chin down just a smidge because I know that that is a little bit bigger. So now once I have those lines in, I can start adding in some features. So let's go. I like to start with the eyes, right? Because if you get the eyes right, everything else will just kind of slowly fall in place. Everybody doing okay? I'm kind of chit-chatting away. So I have to stop and check on everybody every once in a while. Eyes are usually about 1 eye length apart. So if I were to draw another eye in here, you would see that we would have eye. So you would have a third eye in between. So that's how we know we can kind of get our spacing right. So I'm just going to look. This is my eyebrow line here. In fact, I might just, doesn't he have amazing eyebrows? Oh gosh, these are awesome. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of eyebrow shape. And I'll perfect it later, but that just gives me something to go on. And now I'm going to come down and I'll do the eyes. So just doing a nice upper arch. At this point, I'm not drawing with my shoulder anymore. You'll see me moving my elbow. I'm starting to get a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to draw that upper lid shape. And then the bottom. I'm going to see the size of that. And I'm just going to come over a bit and kind of space that out. And then I'll start my other one. And we can look too and see, are the eyes perfectly level, or is one a little bit higher than the other? And I think one is a little bit higher. That's his left eye, the one on our right. So I'm going to start that down a little bit lower. Again, just try to keep your marks nice and light at this stage so that you can make corrections. And then I usually find it helpful to go ahead and draw in the iris, kind of draw in that circular part of our eyes, just to double check that I've got the size right. And you'll notice, unless somebody is really scared or startled, you're not going to see the top of that circle and the bottom at the same time. You're just going to see part. So I'm just kind of drawing in that shape. And then on this side, and don't worry too much if something doesn't look quite right. We're going to be correcting as we go. But we do want to just maybe do a rough check and see, does it look like they're spaced about this right length apart? I'm just going to erase a little bit where I got a little dark to allow myself. Okay. All right, let's go down and go ahead and give some shape to the nose and the mouth and the ears. And then once we have everything just kind of lightly and roughly in, we'll start refining and getting some details. Okay. So I've got the nose here. And I just do a lot of little measuring by just looking at how things relate to each other. I'm just going to see how wide I want to make his nose. So if I'm looking, I can see it's a little bit the inner corner of his eye, and the nose goes just a little bit past that. So make a light indication of that. Same thing on the other side. And then going down to that line where I thought the bottom of my nose was, I'm just going to give an indication of the nostril. My tip on noses and the nostril is to not think of the nostril as a hole, like a donut hole, but to think of it more as like a seashell, like it comes up around and it dips in. So if you look at your nose really carefully in the mirror, you can see that there's two different planes of where it connects. So what the shape we want to draw is a little bit more of like more like that than just a round hole, because the outer edges are farther back on our face than the middle part. Okay. All right, so I've got a little indication of a nose here, and then I'm going to come down. We're drawing fill, and this is called the philtrum, this little divot on our upper lip. So I'm going to give an indication of that, and that will help me space how far I want the nose to be from the mouth. Now his upper lip, he's got this great like half smile kind of smirk going. So we're not seeing a lot of upper lip. So I'm not going to worry about that yet. I'm going to go here to the dark line between his lips. And I'm just going to give myself an indication. Just kind of following the direction of his mouth. That gentle kind of curve. And again, I can look and kind of see the outer edge of his lip is kind of near the inner part of his eye. So I've probably made it a little wide, or else I've put my eyes too close together. We'll figure it out later. Now do the same thing on the other side, and we can see that side of his mouth is definitely higher. I'm going to raise that up a little bit. And he's smiling, so the muscles of his mouth are pulling his mouth back and off to the side. So this side of his mouth is going to come out higher. It's going to be more close to the outer edge of his iris. And just give an indication of that little fold here, that kind of smile dimple. And then just a little indication of the bottom lip. And then he's got this great area where the plane changes from underneath his mouth to the chin. And we can see that line there. So I'm just going to add that in. All right. And then I think I'm going to move my chin up a little bit. All right. So we're getting there, right? We've got eyes, a little bit of nose, mouth kind of floating on the page here. So the next thing I want to do is try to refine the outer shape of his face a little bit more. So I'm going to come to the top and just kind of start on his forehead. And I'm just going to try to think about the shape, following it around his forehead. This is where you want your eyes to work well with your brain, and your brain to send those good signals to your hand, right? Because you're seeing it exactly right. Now you want your hand to follow that. So a wonderful thing, and I know that probably a lot of y'all don't have this printed out, but when you do have a chance to sketch and have something printed out, something you can do is just use two hands at once and just allow yourself to follow the line around. It's a good way to kind of train your brain to see plane changes and shapes. And then I'm coming around the edge of his eye there. And you can see I've already made some corrections to my initial drawing where I'm chiseling in, I'm refining. Every stage is going to get a little bit closer, or that's the goal. And now as I'm coming down closer to his mouth, I can see the cheek is pushed out a little bit. And down here, coming in towards the chin. And you can see just the way the photo is, we lose some definition here, and that's okay. We're just gonna draw what we think and refine it later. I'm gonna go ahead and give an indication of the edge of his shirt here and his neck just to help guide me. You may want to draw in a light circle near his chin just to give that some definition. And now I'm going to come up and do the same thing on the other side. So my career as a medical illustrator, I draw people all the time, but a lot of the times I'm drawing surgeries or brains or hearts. So I found that the first 15 years of my career, I didn't get to draw the outside of people as much as I would like. And so that kind of brought me back to once my children were old enough to be in school, get back into portrait drawing. And it's been so satisfying to me. As much as I like drawing landscapes and still lifes, there's something just so beautiful and fascinating about the human face. So portraits are my favorite thing to draw for sure. But my training and my day job causes me to think about everything that's happening underneath the skin as I'm drawing. So forgive me if I sprinkle in these little anatomy tidbits. I'm always thinking about what muscle is that? What muscle is doing that? So, okay. All right, just coming down on the side of his face. Could give another indication of a neck here and a little bit of his shirt, just to kind of put everything in place. And just give him a little bit of shoulder. Sorry, this is a little visitor. I have learned that if I try to keep my cats out, they will stand at the door and scratch. So they're my workmates. They kind of have free reign. Okay, so now I've got the basic shape of the outer face. It's still not looking right because what are we missing? His ears, right? So let's get the shape of his ears in. Now, if we go back to talking about our proportions, eyebrow to forehead, eyebrow to tip of nose, and then tip of nose to chin. Where do ears fall on that? Well, they usually fall from your eyebrow level to the bottom of your nose. And if you kind of pull over, I'm trying to do this without looking at myself, that's where they're going to fall. Now in this image, because his chin is up, what's happened? His ears have gone lower. So if we look at our drawing, we can see that his ears are falling underneath his eyes. So that's where I'm going to kind of put them in, and we can see it comes down a little bit, ends before his mouth. So just going to do a rough out shape for them right now. And then on this side, same thing. Below his eyes. And somewhere about that range. Okay. And now if we get his hairline in, I think we're going to see we have something that's starting to kind of carry a resemblance, right? Amazing how much just adding that shape of the ears really kind of brought it into focus, at least for me. Okay. All right. He's got great hair. It's going to be really fun and really easy to draw because it's just sticking straight up. Long hair with curls and waves can be much more of a challenge, but this is going to be fun. I'm just giving myself a shape here. All right. Okay. All right. And see what else. I'm just going to add a little bit more below his neck here. Myself a few more lines around his shirt. I'm not going to do any detail on his shirt. You can do as much as you want. I'm just more interested in the face, so I'm just going to give myself some rough lines to indicate he has a shirt. Okay. All right, everybody doing good? All right, I'm going to check my chat here. Yes. Yes, if you have, I do draw at a different speed, and I do tend to cover the drawing, so apologies for that. But I think this is going to be recorded and you'll be able to go back and please take your time. Draw as slowly as you want. In fact, I'll give you a second to catch up and let me just flip through the gallery and just make sure nobody's showing any signs of complete distress. Okay. All right. Holler if you need something. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and start adding some more detail. I think I'm going to keep using the same pencil that I'm using, although if you have a range, you might switch to a darker pencil at this point. As I get more confident, as I get some of the base drawings done, I tend to increase, the pressure and the darkness of the thing. So let's see here. All right, so, and this is the point too where I'm going to make any corrections that I need. So I'm going to start with the eyes. And I'm just going to look. All right. And I think I'm going to actually either move his nose up or his eyes down. I think I'm going to make his eyes slightly larger as I go to this stage. So if you see that I'm not drawing exactly on my underdrawing, I'm just allowing myself to adjust things as I go. And thinking of his upper lid, we have just a nice round shape. You'll notice that sometimes it is sharper near the inner angle, so you might want to just sharpen that line a little bit. And then this upper fold, I'm going to add in. Let's go ahead and refine the iris. And if you're looking at this on your computer or your iPad or your phone, you might be able to zoom in on the photo and see more detail. I'm going to go ahead and just add some darkness for that pupil. And I'm going to try to pay attention to that little white highlight and not cover that up. But if I do, I can always just come back with my eraser. Sometimes I do as much erasing as I do drawing, which is fine. Erasing is really just like reverse drawing. Okay, I'm just gonna refine the inner corner of his eye there. And I'm really looking at this space, see how big this space is between the iris and this inner little, it's called the inner canthus. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a bit smaller. Just another little correction to open his eye a little bit more. Just move that top lid line up a bit. Okay. And you can see right underneath his eye, if you look carefully, you can see a little space before his lashes start, the thickness of that lower lid. So I'm just going to give it a little light dot, dot, dot to kind of indicate that. And then let's go and do this eyebrow. So we have a nice, really nice shadow there. I'm going to take my pencil, just kind of lightly turn it to the side and just add a little shadow there. And maybe just a little bit more. And now I'm going to start adding some of the darkness of this eyebrow. I think that's really going to help us because his eyebrows are such a striking feature. So when I'm drawing eyebrows, I'm really thinking about the shape and the direction the hairs go, even if I'm not drawing individual hairs. So towards the the center of your face, they're going to go more up and out, like a rainbow, up and out. But then once you get towards the middle of your eyebrow, you'll notice they start coming down. So at that point, I just change my direction and start drawing some of those hairs in a different direction, and then they meet up on the bottom. Then I'm just going to go over it a couple times until I get it a little bit darker the way I want it. All right, so then you can see we've kind of got a nice little eyebrow going. I'm going to just go ahead and give myself an indication here of that little midline. I don't want to call it a frown line, right? Because it's just an expression line. It helps us show what's going on inside our brain. And then let's just skip over and do the other side down. I think it helps to work kind of symmetrically on both sides. And then let's go ahead and repeat that. Again, lots of revising at this stage. It's like if, when you're in school and you have to write a rough draft of your essay, and then you give it to your teacher and they make all the corrections and mark it up with the red pen and give it back to you, and you kind of save some stuff and you revise some stuff. So that's what we're doing here now. So just anything that you find you need to change, you would just change it at this stage. I think I'm going to end up moving this eye over just a smidge. It's always easier to draw it the second time, especially if you're just moving something, shifting something. It's always great to stand up and move back from your drawing and look at it. When you get a little distance, you usually see things differently. The hard thing about filming a class is there's a big camera in my face, so I'm kind of looking at everything from off to the side. So sometimes things tend to get a little off and I have to fix them as I go along or later on, but no worries. I don't think artists should try to be perfectionists, because nothing in nature is perfect. It's all unique. So just go with the flow. Still feel like that's a little close together. So I just keep shifting things over. And you can see I'm getting a little tighter, so I'm using my wrist more. And I'm just going to give a couple indications of some of the smile lines around his eyes. I'm not trying to outline everything. Some things are more important than others. And that's our job as artists, to be the editors and to choose what's important and what's helpful for the expression and what's not necessary. And you can see, just because of the lighting, we can really see he's kind of winking that one eye a little bit more, so we can see more on that side than the other. So there's not, maybe just ever so slight on one side, but okay. So I want to get that other eyebrow in, so he looks a little bit more balanced. Again, I'm just going to do a little bit of shading with the side of my pencil. And this eyebrow seems a little more raised. This one seems a little lower. So I'm just looking at the shape. I'm thinking about the direction. But once I get above that iris, then I start doing some of those hairs that are coming downwards. Okay. Going back of the eye and just darkening this eye a little bit since it's more in shadow. Once I get everything in a little bit farther, I will just step back away from my drawing and see what I need to adjust. Okay. All right, let's get down to the nose. I'm going to I'm going to tilt his nose up a little bit more than I originally drew it. So I just look at what I've drawn and just slightly move everything up or over. That's why it's so helpful to kind of draw that first layer lightly. And then I'm just kind of squinting at that and seeing if that feels better to me. And it does. So I'm going to just leave that there. And I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and kind of get rid of my previous nose. I have two girls, a teenager and a tween, an 11-year-old, and they get so frustrated with me because every time they're doing their homework or writing something or drawing something, I'm always saying, don't press so hard. Don't press so hard. Why? You'll never be able to erase that. And they said, why do I need to erase it? And then sure enough, a few minutes later, they realize, oh, that's the wrong answer. And then they try to erase it. And it, of course, won't erase all the way, but use a light touch and it will help with any of the corrections you might find you need to make. If you really enjoy drawing and want to treat yourself to a new tool, this Mono Zero eraser is amazing. It's so fine. It's really helpful to get in and erase in small areas. And you can get it at most Michael's and Hobby Lobby craft supply stores. All right, I'm just kind of having a moment with the nostrils here, trying to get them shaped right. Let's see. Are there proportion lines for the neck? Yes. I'm not very precise about it because so many people, have just different neck sizes and it really depends upon your musculature. But what I do tell people to look out for is to think about if you feel behind your ears, there's a little bump back there. You can feel on both sides. And that's called the mastoid process. And on the skull, we can see it's right there. So if you feel that, and then go down to your collarbone, you'll feel this muscle that runs along there. And so that's what I use for my neck guides. I usually search out that muscle that runs like a triangle down, and then I shape my neck off of that. It's a little hard on Phil here because his shirt is kind of up, so we're not, seeing a lot of neck, but that's what I look for. And then I usually just think about the side of the jaw and just come in a little bit. Unless you're, a bodybuilder or a very, kind of muscular person, your neck is always just going to be a little bit in. Maybe edge of eyebrows might be a good thing to think of, or edge of eyes, just to kind of give yourself a place to start. And I always tell people that all of these proportions and rules are meant to be broken because we're all so different. One of the things, the unexpected benefits for me of drawing portraits is I've come to appreciate some of the differences of my own anatomy. Some of the things that probably I didn't like about my face, or appreciate, or things that I thought were flaws, I now accept as unique things. And we're so much better at looking at other people and recognizing their beauty or their differences, and we're so hard on ourselves. My nose is not anywhere near straight. And so when I started teaching these classes and talking about proportion, and I would use myself as an example, and instead of drawing a straight line, it was always to the side. I thought, my goodness. But yeah, that's a deviated septum, and that's just me. So that's I've really learned to kind of embrace that part of drawing portraits and appreciate people's unique ability to make facial expressions and just unique proportions. So every proportion rule you learn, the next portrait you do, you're going to end up breaking it in some area, but it's a great place to start. All right, I'm just looking at this nice little area where he's got his mouth pulled up just a little bit and just adding a little shade in there. And I'm going to add a little bit more bottom lip. And more with that line. So, and then I'm just going to kind of stand back and look. Anytime I get something that seems to be, standing out or too dark, I can just take my eraser and kind of tap it. All right, now I think let's refine the edge of his face a little bit more. Let me check my time. Okay. Everybody doing okay? Everybody hanging in, drawing Phil? Okay, so I'm going to look at this cheek here. Just make sure I've got my curve right there. Another thing about this image is Phil, he's got some 5 o'clock shadow, which is fabulous. So you can choose how you want to handle that. Sorry, sometimes I just look over at the comments and I get a giggle. I'll probably at the very end just kind of dot in some of that 5 o'clock shadow. All right, looking at the ear. Let's see, someone's asking about the eraser. It is a Tombow Mono 0 eraser. And then this is just a kneaded eraser. All right, so drawing the ear. Anyone, if you've ever taken one of my classes or joined us here before, you've probably heard me talk about my love, absolute love for the ear. It's just a really fun thing to draw. And I think it's because it's almost like a little landscape, like little hills and valleys. So that's what I look for when I'm drawing the ear. That outer ridge, that shape, it's kind of C-shaped. So that's the helix. And then in the inner one is the anti-helix. We can see another bump there. So from this side like this, it's kind of hard to see all the details, but if you think of it as kind of a landscape, I think it makes it entertaining to draw. I'm just going to give it a little shade, a little shadow. And we can see just the end of the bottom. Let's go over and do the other one while we're on this side. Okay. Get that edge of his face first. And let's see, I need to add just a little bit of that nasolabial line there. Come down. And you might seem a little bit crazy, but another thing I like to tell people to do is talk to yourself while you're drawing. If you talk out, if you talk out loud, like you're in a little drawing class, you will find yourself explaining and thinking about why you do things. And when you have to think about why you do things, it makes you question if that's the right thing to do or not. And it just really makes you kind of really in touch with your drawing. So when nobody's in the house sometime, allow yourself to have a pretend drawing class and talk yourself through a drawing. All right. Okay. I'm going to just, you can see a little bit more shadow underneath his chin there. So I'm going to do that. And then let's darken up his hair. This should be the fun part. Good. Let's see. You guys are cracking me up. I feel, yes, he is cute. Talk about how I'm holding the pencil. Yeah, this probably isn't the best pencil to use as an example because it's so short. But I start my drawing holding the pencil way back here. That's that initial circle and that looseness. And then when I start to fix things, I move to about here. And then once I get to the end, I just get tighter and tighter. So, and that really helps me get more control. But if you start off really tight, you're going to be real focused on, the little details instead of the big picture, and that's going to make it a little bit harder to get your proportions right or close to right. So if you kind of think about starting farther away and getting tighter as it goes on, just moving your way down the pencil. And these pencils are called black wings. They have kind of these little interesting rectangular erasers, and I really like them, but they're hard to find sometimes. So I will use this until it is a nub. So, but normally, yes, my pencils are longer, but these are precious. So just use them up. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of keep going over his hair until it's darker. And then it gets a little bit lighter as it goes down. And just, you can see it's growing in a slightly different direction. So I've adjusted the angle at which I'm drawing the little hairs in. Here we can see just some little scruffs right in front of the ear. Let's go to the other side. Same thing. All right. So for me, I really like to feel like I have things to a certain level before I get into shading and details. But everybody works a little bit differently, and sorry, I'm trying not to block my drawing, so I'm gonna get a little awkward right now. And some people like to go in and just finish one area, especially if you're working with pen or something where you don't have a lot of ability to erase. So the more you draw, the more you'll develop your own style. Just kind of give him a little bit of refinement, excuse me, around his shirt. And I want to add a little shadow. And I'm not very picky when I'm drawing something like the edges of it, the edges of a shirt, because unlike a human face, when it's pretty obvious if something is off, you don't know, shirts don't have to be perfect. So I'm just kind of giving the hint. All right. Let's see. Okay, yeah, somebody else is using black wings. Fabulous. This eraser is rectangular, the mono zero, and this one, oh God, it's a tough stuff, Papermate tough stuff. I've had this one eraser for probably 20 years. So if you get one, it'll last you forever. All right, I'm gonna add a little shadow in here, and I'm just turning my pencil to the side so I can just do this kind of quickly. And I have it sharpened to kind of this nice long point, so it just gives me more edge to work with. And when I shade, I'm just shading. I'm thinking about his neck as if it's a cylinder, so I'm just kind of shading in that direction. There's a lot of different ways to shade. I don't always shade at all. Sometimes I just kind of go for more of an outline type of portrait. And then of course you could do one directional shading, which would be all of the shading would be in the same direction. I'm just gonna do, I don't want to do too much. It is darker on this side of his face, but I just don't want to go crazy. So I'm just gonna do a little bit. And if I overdo it, I'll just take my little eraser and just dab it. Okay, so I'm gonna just give a light shadow to that side of his face. Just a little bit right here. Okay, so now this is the fun part. I'm just gonna take my kneaded eraser or whatever eraser you have. And do you see this nice little kind of reflected highlight there? So we're gonna erase that out. Might have erased out a little much. I'm going to switch to my smaller eraser. Once you get kind of to the refining stage of the drawing, that's when things get really exciting, I think. That's when you get to erase out the little highlights in the eyes. Or if you were doing a painting, that would be the moment that you just dab that little white highlight. I did not get it out today, but another wonderful tool that I love is an electric eraser. Because that's really good at digging out little highlights like that. Okay. Okay, so taking my eraser, I'm just going to kind of erase out a few areas. And I just use an eraser, and then I think that's not working for me, and I switch to another one until I get the effect I'm looking for. And I'm going to go ahead and shade around his chin a little bit darker, just so I can go in and erase out that little area under his bottom lip. I think I'm going to do the same thing on the nose. The shading is kind of subtle, but I'm actually going to erase out a little bit. It's just a different way of drawing is sometimes you can go dark and then erase out your highlights instead of trying to, get all the shadows right. Just you can work with it back and forth. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch to one of my darker pencils, and I'm going to kind of give this just a little bit of the final touches. I like to go nice and dark in a few areas. So this pencil, this would be equivalent if you're using some art pencils to like a 6B or an 8B. You can see it's just, I'm not pressing hard, but it's just going on a bit darker. So I'm going to just darken up his hair. And I'm going to just find the absolute darkest areas of the portrait that I want to pull a little emphasis into. Not everywhere, just, okay. So now the next darkest thing for me is these eyebrows. So I'm going to add some more dark there. And if you're working with one pencil, just go back and give it another round of, give it another layer. And just little extra hairs, gonna give it some personality. Okay, so next thing, eyelids, eyes. That upper eyelid is nice and dark. I'm not going to draw in individual. Well, I might do a couple lashes, just a couple. Going to add some darkness to that upper lid. Do the same thing on this side. And these are the stages where the drawing starts to kind of come to life, hopefully. I'm just gonna just a smidge on that crease, not the whole crease, just a bit. And then on his iris, let's see here. Just making that, it's a black and white photo. We're not seeing real distinctions between the pupil and the iris, but we know it's there, right? We know. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I make that center of the iris a little bit darker for the pupil. Okay, and then just shading the white of the eye there on both sides a little bit. We always have a little shadow underneath that upper lid. So even if you don't go completely dark on that eye, you can go a bit darker to indicate that. Yeah. Just a few indications for that semi-wink. Good. And then the next area that I see that needs to go a little darker are the nostrils. And I'm just looking up and I've got it on my computer and I've got it down here. So I'm trying to use the computer more so I don't block your view. We'll be able to wrap it up in a few minutes here. So if you have any questions and you want to be thinking about it, I will be happy to answer them. And then the last thing I think I want to do is just that midline. Bit of upper lip. Okay. It's going to put a few dark areas around the edges. Kind of tie everything all together. And then if you want, this would be the stage where you can kind of give him a little bit of the beard scruff, right? And come back in and just kind of pepper that in. And just trying to keep it light in some areas. Go a little bit darker where it's a little bit more obvious. Got to do some on both sides though, or else he'll look like he's in the middle of shaving. And I'm not going over the top, but it's just a little bit. Whatever feels right for you. Okay, let's see. Let me look over here at some of these questions and see if I can get anything. A beginner shopping list. Get yourself a sketchbook. Doesn't have to be a fancy one. Strathmore makes some good ones, or Canson. This is a moleskin. It's a nice one. They're a little bit harder to find, but just a nice sketchbook. And then you can get you want to get a set of just pencils. So you don't need, I mean, this is a set like this is great. This has everything from H to 8B. So it has a full range of different hardnesses. And that's great. Definitely get a kneaded eraser. And then as a treat, get yourself one of these combo mono erasers. That's it. You need a pencil sharpener. But that, that's it. And I like to say to people, just, try to draw something small every day. And it doesn't matter if it's a pack of gum or an apple. Some people like to just take a screenshot from the TV and draw their favorite, character, draw your cat, whatever it is. Just if you draw a little bit every day, you'll find that, you just develop great habits, but also you just develop that confidence and get better all the time. So that would be my recommendation. Let's see. The pencil sharpener that I use is, gosh, what's it called? It's from Amazon, and if you look for a long point sharpener, it's electric, and you're just, what you want to look for is long point sharpener. So y'all take as much time as you want to finish this up. And if anybody's done and wants to hold their drawings up, that would be fun for me to see. Some of you probably watched and are planning on drawing later, and that's awesome too. So let's see. Okay, let me open up my view a little bit bigger so I can see some of these. Fabulous. Oh my, you all are good. These look good. You know what I'm loving too, and what I've seen on some of these is he looks happy, right? And I think sometimes getting the expression right is really part of the challenge, because if you draw somebody who's happy and they look sad, you're going to feel unsuccessful. But these look really fabulous, and you've given him these are really good. Okay, so I'm on the second page now. You guys did a really good job. His eyebrows are fantastic. You definitely nailed that on all of them. These are really great. Well done. I hope everybody feels relaxed. Maybe drawing, if you're first starting out, isn't as super relaxing. It might be a little stressful, but don't be a perfectionist, and you will find, I think, as you go on through time, that it's just a really great way to unwind and relax. So yeah, I don't know if Nicole wants to open it up for any more questions or anything else.
Yeah, I will, if folks want to put their questions in the chat, they can do that. If you want to raise your hand and share out your question, you can also do that as well. But I do, so while folks are thinking about some more questions to ask, I do have some questions that we had in the chat. So one was, sometimes I smudge shading with my finger to
Yeah.
soften it. Is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, you can. A great way is to draw with an extra piece of paper like this. So if you draw and you keep a piece of paper underneath your hand and can move it around, that's really helpful. I will tell you, I guess I'm not too bad today, but I usually end with my hands completely gray. I'm a big smudger. I've just gotten used to it. But yeah, I draw with a piece of paper under your hand and you can move that along, and that will really help with that. So,
Awesome. And then I have a question, interesting question. Someone's asking, when do you know you're finished with the drawing?
oh gosh, I don't know if you're ever finished. I think you can always do more. And I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is just leave it unfinished. So when you feel a certain level of excitement about it, when things come together, I'm okay stopping with this. I could spend another 10 minutes, I think, probably just getting some more of his little stubble in there, but sometimes it's best to just leave it unfinished and consider it almost a study. So I don't think there is any right answer. I just think when it feels right to you.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
then the last question that I have here, oh, wait, I'm seeing some more come into the chat, but the last one that was in there earlier, actually a few questions from the same person. So
Okay.
one, which black wing pencil are you using?
Okay.
Um, Two, for the Tombow Mono Zero, is it rectangular or round?
Uh-huh.
And three, which 20-year-old eraser are you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the Tombow, this one is round. They do make a square one too, or a rectangle, and it's fabulous. I didn't grab it today, but it's kind of shaped like the Blackwing. So they make both. So the Tombow has both. The 20-year eraser, they still make it. Um I just I always remember because I've completely lost the writing on it, and that's the Papermate Tough Stuff. And I always take it with me. I don't always use it, so that's why. But it's a fabulous one. And then my black wings. Let's see which ones I have. My favorite is the matte. Is this Blackwing? That's the really dark one. This one is a pearl. It's a little bit lighter, but it's just also really nice and smooth. And then the other one I have is the 602, which is a good, just general writing kind of middle pencil. This one, if you have to get one, I would get the matte because it feels like butter. Like it is just really soft and really smooth, and it just has a really great texture. So it's a really pleasing pencil to use. So
Perfect. And then I have another question here. Do you
Mhm.
use blending stumps?
Yeah, I don't, and people love them, and I've seen fabulous fabulous work with them. I think I just never got into them, and I don't know, I've convinced myself that I can't learn new tricks. They're great, and I do have some. I don't get them out very often. What I do use sometimes is pencil shavings. I will sharpen my pencil, and then you end up with all that graphite, and I will take a rag and I'll just kind of wipe it on the drawing, and then I erase out. So it kind of creates a blended surface to work from. So I do that sometimes. And sometimes I use a brush, and actually kind of smear the pencil around with a brush.
Tiffany. And then last question that I'm seeing here
Uh-huh.
is what fixative do you recommend?
Okay, I do not have a specific one, and I don't usually fix all of my drawings, only ones that are maybe going to be framed or special. But any fixative is good. Just make sure you keep that good distance, because you can get too close and kind of saturate the paper in a way that you don't want to do that. But fixative is always a good idea.
All right. I am not seeing any other questions in the chat here. So
Okay.
if folks don't have any other questions, Tiffany, I want to thank you so much for this amazing session. And when you can look in the chat, you see folks are singing your praises and just
Oh,
thanking
thank
you for
you.
the great information you shared. This was a really, really, really great fun session. I hope you all enjoyed. Truly fantastic.